I think that we're about ready to go down to we're going to go down to Christ Chapel here at Gustavus Adolphus College to get started with Nobel Conference 61 for 2025, learning all about sugar. Glad you're here. Let's get started.
I can skip that first line to be, please be seated. So, good morning. Welcome to the 61st Nobel Conference, Sugar, Bringing Sweetness to Light. My name is John Volin, and I'm honored to be the president of Gustavus Adolphus College. It's a pleasure to welcome you all, joining us here on campus and tuning in through live stream. As we open the Nobel Conference, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the Gustavus Adolphus College is located in the ancestral homelands of the Dakota people, whose spiritual traditions include the belief that this land, along with the creatures and the people living in it, are their relatives. The Minnesota River and its watershed are sacred places. These waters and lands are interconnected with Dakota culture, language, creation stories, spiritual rites, livelihood, and sustenance. Since 1965, the Nobel Conference has been bringing leading researchers and thinkers to Gustavus to explore revolutionary, transformative, and pressing scientific issues and the ethical questions that arise alongside them. The Nobel Conference at Gustavus is at its core of the kind of liberal arts education that we strive for at our college. In fact, I was attracted to Gustavus for this very kind of education, encouraging our students to develop the skills and knowledge to be scientists while deeply exploring the values that underpin the way we engage with the world and each other. It is our privilege to host a space where we can examine both the discoveries that shape our world and the values that guide how we use them. When Alfred Nobel died, his will stated that his fortune was to be used, quote, to honor those who, during the preceding year, shall have conferred the greatest benefit to humankind, unquote. In a world of partisan divides and an increasingly public callousness to human suffering, this conference creates an educational space that is intentionally interdisciplinary and focused on creating good in the world, our world. It is a model for our students and participants in shared problem solving and improving the world. This kind of work requires care in thinking critically about problems, welcoming dialogue, and remaining open to new ways of experiencing the world. And I'm honored to be part of my first Nobel Conference. Gustavus is honored to be the only institution in the United States authorized by the Nobel Foundation in Stockholm, Sweden, to use the Nobel name in conjunction with an event. We are deeply grateful to the Nobel Foundation Board for their continued trust and partnership with the Gustavus Nobel Conference. I want to extend a heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished speakers who are seated here in front. We are grateful for your participation and willingness to share your knowledge and expertise and to engage with us. I look forward to learning from you all. I also wish to extend a sincere thank you to those whose generosity makes this conference possible. Because of their support, we're able to offer the Nobel Conference free of charge to all attendees. The Nobel Conference Endowment Fund supports a portion of the conference costs each year, with core funding provided through the generous gifts of the late Reverend Drell and Elaine Bernardson. Additional support has come from gifts to the fund by Dawn and Ted Michael, Russell and Rhoda Lund, William Harvey, Steve Seether, Steve and Peg Sutherland, and the Mardag Foundation in memory of Edgar Ober and the United Health Group. We are also grateful for Steve Seether, a devoted friend of the conference, for his commitment, significant future endowed support. Special thanks to the Conference Planning Committee, to our faculty and staff, our student liaisons who are helping host the speakers, and to the exceptional team of Heroic Productions for their work with sound, lighting, and live streaming. Now it is my pleasure to welcome Nobel Conference Director Phil Voight and this year's conference chair, Lisa Heldke. As they come forward, I want to acknowledge that this year is a year of leadership transition for the Nobel Conference. After 9 years as director, Lisa has decided to step down this summer to return to full-time teaching, while graciously serving as chair of this year's event to ensure a smooth handoff. Lisa, we are deeply grateful for your leadership, your creativity, and your vision. It's my pleasure to turn the program over to Phil and Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, President Volin, for that kind introduction. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the 61st Nobel Conference. Those of you who are online will have the experience curated by Gustavus alumnus Tane Danger, who's a speaker and moderator, and by science journalist Maggie Kurth. I'd also like to thank Chad Winterfeld, Hudson Nichols, Gracelyn Sisnall, Dominic Snyder, Zach Mangan, and Barrett Loof for the wonderful music this morning. This is your conference program. Those of you that are watching on the live stream, there's a PDF of this. But think of this as your syllabus for the next 2 days. And in it, you will find that have carefully curated biographies for each speaker, which will allow the people introducing them as faculty liaisons to give you a truncated version. There's also a lot of other information at the back of the program. And when you go home, be sure and check out the website, or if you're on the live stream, you can do this also, where you can dig deeper into the topics than which you are newly or more recently curious, or in which you want to know more. Notice that our conference is broken into 2 large halves. Today, we deal with sugar in us, and tomorrow we focus on sugar in the world. Each session will feature either 1 or 2 talks, and then a relatively long discussion period, which will be a plenary session. We'll bring all of the speakers up on the stage. And if you are able to think of a question, you can email that question to us at nobelconference@gustavus.edu. Our student liaisons will then send them to Jackson, who will feed them up to us, and we will ask those questions of the people at the rostrum. We usually have time for 5 or 6 questions, so forgive us if we don't get to yours. Don't just send your questions to us, though. Feel free to post them on LinkedIn, on Facebook, talk about them with others over lunch. Asking questions and posing questions is one of the best ways to consolidate your thinking about new information. Now, over lunch today, there are a whole set of breakout sessions, too, that are described in the program. We have one person that is pre-registered for the breakout session that's in the Nobel kitchen. The rest of those sessions will be first come, first serve, and they'll take the first 16 in that Nobel kitchen session. So if you are interested in that one, please do get there early. You can find a list of all of the other topics in the program, including 2 separate art installations that are sugar-related, one in the Schaefer Fine Arts Gallery, which will feature an artist talk later on in the conference, and one in the Hillstrom Museum of Art, which was curated collaboratively by art history professor Colleen Stockman and Gustavus students. It's really a wonderful exhibition. I saw it yesterday, so please do stop and check it out. What you're going to experience today is the culmination of 18 months to 2 years of effort by a large number of people. And there are so many people that I'd like to thank, but I really do want to single out 2 people right at the outset. Lisa Heldke, who's also been mentioned, and Barb Larson-Taylor, and I can't see because of the Klieg lights up here, but I know Barb is probably here, or she'll think about the conference and the live stream. And Lisa, of course, is stepping down after a decade as our Nobel Conference director. Barb is our senior director of brand experience and engagement. Both of them have done brilliant work on this conference. They've made it quite easy to step in, and both Todd and I are very grateful. So please join me in a round of applause. I cannot emphasize enough how gracious Lisa has been in this transition, and how frequently she's gently nudged me and said, you might want to think about doing this, and that has made all the difference. Well, I guess you'll be the judge of that. I'd also like to thank the members of the Nobel Conference Planning Committee and the faculty liaisons. You'll hear more about them as the program goes on, so I'm just going to talk about them by name here. Stephanie Otto, Kelly Nett, Provost Brenda Kelly, Amanda Nenow, Kate Keller, Anna Versluis, Kathy Lundeen, and Janie Franzen. That's the end of my remarks for now. At this time, I'd like to call upon Lisa Heldke to tell you more about the conference.
Enough with the Lisa Heldke business already. Thank you, Phil. I'm aware of the fact that my presence here today suggests that I am that kind of person who doesn't realize that her contract expired and she just keeps showing up at the meetings. So I promise I will go away after this year. And Phil, I really do appreciate the graciousness with which you've accepted those. So Phil, have you thought about maybe that you need to comments that I send you at 3 in the morning? So for one last time, why does the Nobel Conference matter? And why does it matter now? Why should we bring leading thinkers and creators together to explore science and ethics in front of the rest of us? Here's one reason. We are living in complicated, tumultuous times for science, times in which conversations about the relationships between scientific questions and ethical questions regularly go sideways, sometimes disastrously. The Nobel Conference creates a space in which we can explore those questions with each other, face to face. Another reason, in a scientific world characterized by specialization, this conference invites both audience and speakers to leap disciplinary fences and practice talking with each other, even in the absence of shared vocabularies and discipline-specific assumptions. I started seeing these things in action when I began attending Nobel Conference as an 18-year-old. I went to the conference for every single one of the wrong reasons. So if you are a student out there here for the wrong reason, welcome. I was a follower then of even imaginary rules, and I wanted to be seen as the sort of person who went to the Nobel Conference. I went to every single solitary lecture, and I understood almost nothing. But despite my bad reasons for going, and despite the fact that most speakers then didn't really understand what general audience meant, those conferences transformed me. Grabbing occasional moments of clarity in a talk that otherwise sailed over my head was an exhilarating experience that led me to ask friends, what was that all about? I remember a joke about Heisenberg, the punchline of which was, "Are you certain?" I thought, well, why is everyone in the room except me laughing right now? Witnessing how speakers connected or didn't connect with each other showed me that inquiry is messy, complicated, fraught, and it's carried out by human beings with egos and high hopes, grudges and visions. For me in particular, seeing theologians and philosophers struggling to make their ideas intelligible and compelling to natural scientists introduced me to the ways in which different disciplines understand the relationship between scientific questions and ethical ones. Is there a chasm between them that must be somehow bridged? Or are those kinds of questions always already utterly entangled? As a student, I often came away frustrated by the message the conference seemed to telegraph. Ethical issues could be encapsulated and presented by one speaker, who usually came last when most people had already left. My desire to press that relationship between the scientific and ethical, and I'll admit it, my desire to put my thumb on the scale for the entanglement view of their relationship, led me to put my hand up to lead the conference, and exploring their relationship in the context of each new topic has guided and motivated the work of each conference committee. So today, what are the ethical, social, cultural, political dimensions of emerging research on sugar? And conversely, what emerging developments in sugar research will enable us to address pressing social challenges with which our relationship to sugar confronts us? The second related desire that has motivated me is the desire to create those conversations across disciplines. About 15 years ago, we hosted a conference on the theme, Making Food Good. At the end of that conference, one of the speakers, a taste psychologist, said, you know, you've put a bunch of people together who in the normal course of their professional lives would never meet each other, let alone talk to each other. No two of us are even in the same sort of professional division. This is an important opportunity for us. Committees strive hard to bring together people who have to work hard to talk with each other. And every time a speaker observes that they've been thinking about something they never would have thought about because they've spent 2 days having conversations with people they don't exactly know how to talk to, I've held a little party in my mind because I'm imagining just what that conversation might lead to in the work of this brilliant researcher or practitioner. This year's conference assembles a group of researchers, practitioners, scholars, teachers who most definitely have never been together at a professional meeting. As you listen to their talks and their discussions, notice how they are working to understand each other. What questions arise, for instance, when a researcher who studies sugar as a substance of addiction interacts with a historian who studies the practices of enslavement and colonization that enabled its production on an industrial scale? What topics will percolate to the surface in an exchange between an epidemiologist studying the health impacts of sugar-sweetened beverages on our bodies and a pastry chef studying the ways to create works of sugar beauty that also promote bodily health? How will an economist and a historian approach sugar, the commodity, differently, and how the same? What connections will be drawn between the research of scientists studying the sugar that we eat and the biochemical research into the very different sugars that coat our cells? And how can we, as the audience, reflect on those questions against a background of fraught and often painful public discussions about the health effects of dietary sugars, about added sugars in school foods, about ongoing human rights issues in sugar cane production and manufacture and sugar beets, and also about reports about exciting breakthroughs in medical research involving glycans? Sugar is a substance entangled in human lives in myriad ways. As such, it is the subject of study for many bodies of inquiry, from biochemistry to neuroscience, from epidemiology to culinary art, from history to economics. Over the course of these 2 days, this distinguished panel of speakers will introduce us to the functions and dysfunctions of sugar in us living beings, and to the complicated, painful, and joyful ways that sugar production and sugar creation have shaped the world in which you live. This is going to be a very hard class. Thank heavens we are not going to be graded. Thank you very much. And I would like to welcome to the stage my colleague in the Department of Health and Exercise Science, Stephanie Otto, who will introduce, finally, our first speaker.
Good morning. I'm going to start by just saying I love sugar. Yes, I said it. I love it. My kids know that after Halloween, it's in their best interest to hide their candy from me. Sweet treats are one small example of the way food can be associated with fun, celebration, joy, and comfort. Our first speaker this morning once said, "Food is love, food is joy, food is culture." But like every great heroic fantasy film, the light always is balanced by some form of dark. While sugar can inspire joy, it can also bring addiction. Sugar offers the body an easily accessible